concepts around healthy living. It can be anything they want, any country they want. They can make it a global product. They can have it specific to an area in Denmark. It doesn't matter. It just has to be about healthy living. And they will practice the theory that they learn during the module. They don't have homework from that. They will focus on that during the modules and work towards a goal of a concept at the end of the program. They take that knowledge back into the company, into their live projects, which are what we call the company projects.
Perfect. Let's talk about you. You're the headmaster in charge for 1A Tech.
I'm the dean.
You're the dean. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. But also, you're the one who's around the 1A Tech.
Yes.
You invented it and you came with a radical innovation to Denmark, which had not been very rare, after all. And how do you think your background as an anthropologist would affect the education? What would you give? What kind of asset can you give to the education?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I just read the Bain report over the weekend, and this report actually is indicating that companies globally are now saying that ethnographic insight has become one of the crucial points to their understanding, not only of their customers, but into concept making, into the process of innovation. So, when I became an anthropologist, the last thing I expected was to be working in the corporate world. I grew up in a family, an academic family, that basically taught me that business was a four-letter word. And because of that, the idea of going into the business world never really entered my mind. And what I think I need to go back even further is that how I became an anthropologist was very much part of my upbringing. I define myself today as a foreigner. I'm a foreigner everywhere I go, and I've been a foreigner my entire life. I struggled with this in my teenage years, in my 20s and 30s, because society tells you that you're supposed to have a community, you're supposed to have a root. Well, I grew up in Asia, Taiwan, Japan. I grew up in different parts of the United States, and I never felt like I had a community around me. But what that really gave me, this upbringing, was a mindset. I understood that I had one survival tool, and that was if I wanted to make friends, I'd better understand the society or culture that I was living in. I understood this at a very early age, that when I was hanging around Chinese kids, if I wanted to be their friend, I had to understand their culture, not my own. And so this quality became so integrated into who I am that when I first took a class in anthropology, a light bulb went into my head, and I suddenly realized, well, that's the mindset, that's who I am. So I became an anthropologist, never expecting, as I said, to work in the corporate world. It all happened by I think honestly, and again, it's something I hope we can bring to the learnings at 180 Academy, is that you have to be open to the possibilities in life. And I had an opportunity to work actually on a quantitative study at Boeing where we were taking surveys, again, it was a quantitative study, and taking surveys of passengers on long-haul flights, when it suddenly occurred to me that maybe that wasn't the best way to do things, that wouldn't it be better if you really want to design the inside of an aircraft to talk with the pilots and the passengers and the flight attendants and actually learn and experience their issues as they're flying and hurtling through the air. And Boeing gave me that opportunity, and that's how I became a design anthropologist. And from there, I was recruited into I was recruited into Microsoft, and really had the experience of my life. I met lots of walls, and those walls were my realization that the people who work in Microsoft, as gifted as they are, had at the time very little experience with everyday people in their everyday lives. And helping that company understand how important it was to go from a technology perspective to a people-centered approach to product innovation and service innovation was really my life's challenge. And I enjoyed my job there very much, and began working and consulting in a lot of different industries in this area, and realized that this mindset of being able to look and see things from another perspective, that foreigner approach to the world, was an asset in the business world. And being able, when going to any company, being told, this is what we're trying to figure out, this is the nut we're trying to break, and be able to look at it from a completely different approach than the company approach, often helped companies open up and see that they had tremendous possibilities, but they had been blinded by their company's approach and also the approach of their competitors.
Thank you. The last one is personally, can you see blinders around you when you walk the street, when you go out and speak with a business corporation, or when you talk with the authorities? Can you see the blinders? Can you feel that instead?
I feel those blinders every day. And the blinders in themselves, you can't really put a negative value on them, because they're a necessity of survival. And I've learned to survive, in a sense, with minimal blinders. My own blinders are that I'm a foreigner, but that you have to learn to accept that you have blinders in order to survive in any given culture. But when you're in the area of creativity and innovation, you have to be able to risk taking off those blinders and looking at the world from another approach. You can bring your blinders back later. For example, an engineer who has to build a house, they can't pretend they don't have a skill set of engineering. Engineering is important. You have to have your blinders on at some point. The skill set that you learned at school, the question is when and how and where. Situation and context is really important. Whenever I'm walking down the streets, when experiences happen, I often note that people react in certain ways because of their blinders, and if they would take off their blinders, they might see that a person isn't being rude to them at all, or that the situation isn't as bad as they've made it out to be. Let me give you an example. When I go to an airport, and the place that I call home is probably airports and airplanes. It's what I know best. I've spent the last 46 years on them. I learned to walk on an airplane, and there's a sense of comfort there for me. Well, after 9/11, we got pretty long security lines. And I go in those lines with all the businessmen, mostly businessmen. There aren't that many businesswomen still. You have this sense of anger and frustration, and people are upset. And it's very easy to attach yourself to that, and that's in a sense a blinder. For me, the longer the line, the better. Why? Because the security line is a rite of passage. Before I get to the security line, I'm a worker. I have a role of focus on work. I'm a mom. I'm all these different things. I have a partner. I care about him. I'm worrying about him, thinking about him. They can call me. They can interrupt me anytime they want. Work, family, friends. Well, that time, that rite of passage is into a place where nobody can reach me, and it's my time. So the longer the rite of passage, the longer I have to shed myself of these different things that are stopping me from just having a moment to reflect on who am I and what's important to me, and that's plane time. So I look forward to those long lines, and I've learned to turn that around, and I try to help people in the line get that same approach. They think I'm a nutcase, but that's how I do it.